Welcome to Mr. Giant Reacts and Ting and Ting and Ting. I'm Mr. Giant, and the one we're gonna be watching right now is called "The Poorest Countries in the World in 2022." Of course, they're probably just thinking about economics and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Now, I judge the richness of a country in the way the people are. Granted, all that other stuff, economic stuff, and all that is important. Don't get me wrong. And we have deluded ourselves into believing that that's what makes us happy. But I live in a place where people have mostly everything compared to where I'm from, and they're still not completely happy. You know what I mean? I think happiness is a mindset and not the external things that people would consider that makes them happy and thing. You know what I mean? But let's get into this video here. Let's YouTube and simmer and see which countries are the poorest countries in 2022.
Average age is only 17? Get ready to witness misery, backwardness, and starvation, because today you'll find out the poorest countries in the world. Number 10, Malawi. The GDP per capita for this poor country in southern Africa is only $1,591 a year. 85% of the residents live in rural areas, and almost the same percentage relies on agriculture. Thus, the country went through an economic crisis between 2015 and 2016 because of a sudden drought that in turn triggered severe famine. According to pre-pandemic data, 52% of the population was poor, the middle class practically
Wow.
didn't exist, and 25% of them lived in extreme poverty. Also, 9.5% of the population has HIV or AIDS.
Wow.
That is 1,100,000 seropositive out of only 13 million people. Starvation and disease have caused many grandparents to start taking care of their orphan grandchildren. On the other hand, Malawi is one of the epicenters of discrimination and murder of albino children, since their bodies are seen as magical objects, so they're dismembered and sold as amulets. An arm can cost over $1,100 on the
Whoa.
black market. Malawi's life expectancy is only 65 years, and only 62% of adults can read and write. If you don't think this is enough, wait for the next countries. Number 9, Madagascar. This African island, known for being the land of lemurs, isn't exactly a paradise for humans. The GDP per capita in this country averaged only $1,543, and 69% of the residents live on less than $1 a day. 85% of households don't have electricity.
What?
Only half of the population has access to piped water, and 90% of households aren't connected to a public sewer. So it's common for them to have bowel movements outdoors. Because of this, the island was the scene of outbreaks such as bubonic plague in 2017 and measles in 2019. Life expectancy is only 67 years, and 1 out of 16 children dies before turning 5. The malnutrition rate was
Wow.
42% before the pandemic. The situation got worse in 2021, when 1.5 million people in the south of the island faced terrible famine caused by drought. So many people had to feed only on locusts while waiting for humanitarian aid. Number 8, Liberia. This West African country was devastated by a civil war until 2003, and in 2015 by an Ebola outbreak. Liberia's GDP per capita is only $1,467, and its capital, Monrovia, was classified by the UN as the poorest city in the world.
Wow.
Only a third of the residents have access to a proper toilet, and in the whole country, the figure is even lower. In marginal neighborhoods, the toilets are so precarious they collapse when it's raining, or people just use beaches or spaces between houses to have a bowel movement. 83% of the Liberian population is at the threshold of poverty,
Wow.
meaning they live on less than $1.2 a day. The formal sector rate is only 15%, and 32% of the country suffers from malnutrition. As if this wasn't enough, female genital mutilation, a practice that involves totally or partially removing external genitals, is widespread. Between 58% and 66% of Liberian women have been victims of this abuse, condemned by the United Nations. Number
I'm speechless, man. And that's just what, two or three of them that they name there. Speechless. And I think I'm from the third world. We don't have nothing like that where I'm from. People don't go to do their business in the middle of houses and wow. Now, here's something. Part of it is nature. But on the flip side, we have to ask ourselves, why are these specific countries so poor? Because if we look at we did want the safest countries in the world, look at the difference in people. You understand what I mean? And unfortunately, in this world, there seems to be a mindset that if you're poor, it's your fault. Not take into consideration the extenuating circumstances that creates that situation. And we tend to make everything political, which kind of dehumanize it. Okay, I did a story. I reacted to a video on God, what is that called, man? But anyways, where African American soldiers were protected by British soldiers because the white American soldiers didn't want them to fraternize with the white British soldiers. And somebody commented on there, and they started this. The first thing they started off saying is that the far left is the one that's causing the racism and stuff like that. And right off the bat, anything you say after that doesn't really hold water, because I think politics take out the human element in things. See, politics for me, is to control the human being, when the human being should control the politicking that's going on, which they should control it and be human and have empathy. But to get voted, they have to dehumanize somebody, so they're going to dehumanize, whoever. In this international system here, if some of those countries have natural resources that richer countries, and it doesn't matter what nationality, what ethnicity, but richer countries, period, could exploit, they're going to dehumanize them. And if they don't treat them right and pay them the wages that's going to be livable wages, they're going to live in this kind of poverty. And then to top it off, they have natural disasters and stuff going on there. You know what I mean? Another thing too that is this person said on there is that, well, why don't you pretty much they say we don't have as black people, we don't have any morals because you don't have family life. Everybody's just running around willy-nilly having babies everywhere. And is that okay? I live in a predominantly white neighborhood, and that is rampant here. Lots of absentee dads, lots. I mean, it's crazy here. Some people have 3, 4, 5, 6 children, different fathers, absentee, and they're not black, they're white. So I don't think that situation is a result of the color of the skin. I think it's more of a class thing. You know what I'm saying? Okay, this is gonna sound pretty bad. Poor people, a lot of poor people can't afford to spend money here, spend money there. Recreation, they use sex. They don't use protection because hell, some of them don't have the money to buy a simple Trojan or something to, you know what I mean? So they use that as a recreation. And me being a sociologist, when people come up to me and they have so many kids and stuff, I start asking them questions. You know what I mean? And it's kind of evasive, but I do because I want to understand. It's like, why so many? You know what I mean? And most of them would tell you that this wasn't intentional. They were just all having a good time. A lot of them would tell you it's not planned. So when you're poor, recreation is limited. The only recreation is each other. So the premise that the reason why black people aren't respected is because, and this is what that person was saying in the comments that they put in there, it's because of lack of family morals and single mothers. That grates me because I was raised by a single mother. My parents were married, but my dad was kind of absentee himself. Look at me, I'm fine. I'm not out there shooting up the place. I got educated, went to got a degree. You know what I mean? My brother's nothing like that. My sister, nothing like that. She's raising her kids, and they all in they all went to college, and they're all doing their thing. You know what I mean? And that is not a minority of them. You cannot say that across the board for everybody. Like for instance, I grew up where it's black doctors, black priests, black judges, black everything. So I never felt less than. I always thought that I could be anything I want to be because I have the examples to see it. But in another country, like here for instance, where there is those people that are like that, but then going ahead, okay, here we go. When you talk to kids and they talk about my height, oh man, you could have get out of the ghetto, you could have been rich if you play basketball. Where I'm from, they tell you could get out from where you're from by getting educated. So it depends on where you grow up and the culture with where you live in. You're going to be good person, bad person. Or your society is going to be a pseudo-successful society, or it's going to be a totally, dilapidated thing. But this thing has got me twisted, man. People actually live like that, and we don't. I think the blaming the people who live like that and saying it's the government, is this, is they're not religious enough, or something like that, is just a way for us to dismiss helping them. Let's get back to the video here. See what.
Number 7. Mozambique. This southern African country's GDP per capita is $1,296. 70% of the residents are below the threshold of poverty. Life expectancy is only 58 years, and only 56% of adults can read and write. Mozambique is one of the most affected countries by HIV. 12% of the population is seropositive, and since 2015, there have been more than 39,000 deaths caused by AIDS. Sanitary conditions are quite poor. 2/3 of the population don't have access to an appropriate water and drainage supply system. The under 5 mortality rate is high. 147 out of 1,000 children will die before reaching that age. Plus, 45% of these deaths are caused by malnutrition, and almost as much by malaria. Number 6.
So, the last time I got on here and I spoke, I said that outside influence have a lot to do with it, but also, and I have to make that point as strong as possible, also, the inside could create that. Tribal wars, some of their own people get greedy and take advantage of them, dictate toward them. You know what I'm saying? Instead of helping the people, they take advantage of their own people. Especially ones who either went away to get educated and come back and know the ins and outs of systems they could use to control, or just those that just take it by sheer power, military power, and they oppress their own people. That is kind of prevalent too in a lot of those poor countries. On top of the outside influence, on top of the natural disasters and all of that. I just wanted to clarify that because some people say, well, you're always blaming everybody else. No, it's a myriad of things that are creating that. And it's hard, I think, for us to, it seems such an impossible thing to change that we tend to sort of brush it off as something else and nothing ever gets done. Let's get back to the video.
Niger.
Man.
It's nestled in the Sahara Desert with a gross domestic product per capita of only $1,287. Indeed, 48% of the country lives below the threshold of poverty. That is, they live on $1 a day or less. The country is the victim of a drought that destroyed crops and killed the cattle. 20% of the residents can't get enough food for the whole year. So many of them eat wild fruits, but some are toxic and cause diarrhea. The health outlook is even more serious. More than 20% of children die before their 5th birthday. Life expectancy is hardly 63 years, and only 30% of the people can read and write. As if that wasn't enough, Niger is a receiving country for refugees from Mali and Nigeria that are involved in armed conflicts. Also, it's an important crossing point for migrants who go through the Sahara to reach Europe. Number 5, South Sudan. It was recently independent in 2011. This is the newest country in the world and also one of the poorest. The GDP per capita for it is only $1,234. Misery feels at home here. There's almost no electricity, and those who have a cell phone must charge it in the market. Shoes are a rare commodity, so most people go barefoot. 90% of the population lives on less than $1 a day, and, according to the United Nations, 8 out of 10 million residents need humanitarian aid. Although there are cities, it's normal to live in small villages made up of several cabins. Due to the long and bloody Revolutionary War and also the Civil War that started 2 years later, there are many more women than men. So polygamy became widespread, and now a man can have up to 4 or 5 wives. In terms of health, 13 out of 100 children die before turning 5, and maternal mortality is also high. Under these circumstances, it's not surprising that only 26% of South Sudanese can write and read. Number 4, the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The GDP per capita for this country is $1,141. The cell phone you're watching this video on is likely to have a little bit of soil from this country inside, due to the fact that the Democratic Republic of the Congo is a major exporter of coltan, which is a rock that contains a high concentration of tantalum, the mineral used to produce cell phones. However, the riches only benefit the armed groups, resulting in a total mess. 80% of its population lives in extreme poverty. Life expectancy is only 62 years, and wars have left 4 million orphan children. According to UNICEF, 43% of children experience delayed growth. Regarding sanitary matters, the situation is also awful. Less than a quarter of the country has access to drinking water. As if this wasn't enough, this country is the scene of one of the most medieval events that continue to occur up to now, the witch hunt. That's right, in September 2021 alone, 8 women accused of witchcraft were burned alive. Number 3, the Central African Republic. As its name suggests, the Central African Republic is a country located exactly in the middle of Africa, and the GDP per capita for this country is $987 a year. 67% of the residents live in extreme poverty, and about 2.3 million people, that is, more than half of the country, need humanitarian aid. 40% of the country suffers from chronic malnutrition, and there are only 3 doctors for every 100,000 residents. The literacy rate is very low, since people who can read barely reach 37%, and life expectancy is only 53 years. Infrastructure is very scarce, and in its capital, Bangui, there are neighborhoods where drinking water hasn't come out of the faucets for more than 5 years.
Wow.
Number 2, Somalia. Civil war devastated this country and got it divided into several unrecognized states that run against one another. The GDP per capita here is only $986. 75% of the country is below the poverty line, and 43% of the population lives on less than $1 a day. Agriculture is one of the sectors that support the economy, and it went into crisis in 2017 due to a drought that caused a food crisis, specifically famine, for 6 million people. Only 45% of the country has access to piped water sources, and the rest are exposed to get sick with, for example, cholera from drinking contaminated water. In 2015, 1 out of 7 children died before turning 5, mainly from starvation and untreated diseases due to the lack of medical care. Life expectancy is only 56 years, and, just like in Liberia, female genital mutilation is also widespread. Indeed, 97% of Somali women experienced this practice in 2005. But thanks to the authorities' involvement, it has been reduced. And now it's time to find out the poorest country of all. Residents are, on average, 17 years old. Number 1, Burundi. It's located in the heart of sub-Saharan Africa. The GDP per capita for this country is only $770. It has no access to the sea, and its economy relies on agriculture, which represents half of the GDP and gives work to 90% of the population. Indeed, almost 1 out of 10 Burundians live in the countryside. As it's also a mountainous country, residents are quite exposed to natural disasters like floods. As I told you before I began, this country is extremely young. The average age is only 17 years old, and about 46% of the population is 14 years old or younger.
Wow.
On the other hand, more than half of the children suffer from chronic malnutrition. Burundi is so poor that foreign aid accounts for 42% of total income, and it was described as one of the least happy countries in the world in 2018. However, political riots in 2015 caused international donors to stop giving. So the national budget was cut by 50%, and this was an absolute catastrophe. Fortunately, once the situation stabilized, the contributions returned.
Okay.
Otherwise, many more people would be going hungry in this country of children. You made it to the end. Don't forget that there are more countries.
What in the world? And this stuff has been going on for decades now. This is not new. That's what's sad about it. You know what I mean? Because even when I was growing up as a teenager, I heard about this kind of stuff, and I really want to know, why is it that that part of the world is suffering so much? Now, also remember that there are other parts of these countries that are not like this. It just seems like this, as they say, is a majority. But there's other parts where people are getting educated, and and they live in good lives, and stuff like that. But if other people are living like that, man, how could your conscience not affect you? I could say it could be because of leaders, but then in some cases the leaders' hands could be tied. You know what I'm saying? Okay, I'm gonna leave a link in the description to this video. You know what I mean? Y'all could go check it out and thing. And hope you guys are taking care of each other all day. All right. Cool runnings.